Welcome to Leadership is Me, the podcast where personal growth meets real world leadership and where titles take a backseat to the truth. I'm your host, the Blooming Dahlia, coach, guide, and founder of Rebel Alchemy. And around here, we have unfiltered conversations with everyday entrepreneurs and leaders who have dared to rewrite their story and then chose to grow through it. In every episode, we will explore the heart of growth, mindset shifts, quiet battles, and the defining moments that shape not just the leaders, but their entire lives. So if you're building a business, rebuilding yourself, or just simply learning how to lead with more truth, you have found your people. So let's dive in. So today I am talking with Amy Hager. She is an organic marketing mentor. And I'm going to definitely let her give you her story. But what I thought was so cool is that she's lived 12 lives, right? She's so many experiences. She's raced cars, which that's cool. I'm geeking out just at that. But she's raced cars. She's been a radio DJ, sales and marketing teams. So, she has a wide range of experience, which anytime that you're multi-passionate or multifaceted like that, that definitely comes with a lot of growth, a lot of introspection, etc. So I am so excited to talk to Amy today. So hi, Amy, how are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm really well. I'm super excited for our conversation.
Awesome. So again, before I get to picking your brain,
hmm
why don't you just take like the next 30 seconds and you can just tell the people what it is that you do and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Again, I'm Amy Hager. I'm an organic marketing mentor, and I'm really working with mission-driven entrepreneurs, leaders, and creatives who are really ready to replenish their energy because they've already created a business that is amazing, that is making money, that is making impacts in this world. And they're looking for their next best business growth steps. And, I think the beautiful thing about doing the work that I do is a lot of my focus comes from my background in marketing and messaging. And so I know that it lives within you. It's figuring out how to say it or how to phrase it so that others can really get on board and see that bigger mission that you're trying to create and that bigger impact that you're making in this world.
So you said something, you phrased something in a way that I've never heard it before. You said repolish their image. Like, what does that mean when you're like, let's repolish this? Like, what?
Yeah. And so a lot of times what happens is when we're describing who we are and what we do in this world, sometimes we're describing it from our position and not necessarily using the words or the positioning that our ideal clients would actually be saying. And so by repolishing and figuring out what words it is that are living in you that can connect and really bridge that gap in the people that you're trying to attract and the people that you're trying to work with, rephrasing that in a way so that it actually makes sense and connects deeply with the person that you're trying to work with or that you're trying to attract to your business or that you're trying to hire because you're bringing on new people. And I think a lot of times because we position the things and how we see them and not necessarily how our ideal person that we're trying to attract would see them, that's really where you get to kind of recondition your thinking of how you're messaging yourself.
Awesome. So how did you get into this world of repolishing? Let's say
Oh
that.
my gosh. It's been a journey. It's interesting because it actually really, I think a common thread of all of what I've done is built deep relationships and built really great communities. And that actually started when I first started racing. I started racing when I was 9 years old. And so I really had to figure out as I was going around town, asking people to give me money for tires and gas as sponsors, like what makes me different than any other driver out there, besides the real uber obvious thing, which was I was a girl. And so when I really took the girl factor out of it and figured out what I did differently, what I did to attract fans, and what I did to really become that person at the race car track that everybody wanted to go see after a race, whether I won, lost, or didn't even show up on the track because the car broke. I really, really figured out how to explain that I am a community builder. And so by always staying top of mind with fans, by interacting with the fans, going into the stands and sitting with them and having conversations, knowing we were little back then, we were in school ourselves, knowing what schools they go to. And so, building those deep relationships that no matter what, they were always my biggest champions and they always believed in me, some days more than what I could believe in myself, when I could explain that to a sponsor, and Hardee's was one of my biggest sponsors for the longest time, it really made sense for then how can we collaborate and create something that's really amazing together. And I think that collaborating is one of the key things, especially as a leader, that we really need to double down on, because really we're not creating huge impacts and we're not making big changes alone in this world. It really is done through that collaborative community effort.
So you you said a mouthful. So I want to pick apart something. So first and foremost, you talked about one of the biggest differences was you being a girl.
Yeah,
And if I'm guessing, that had to be a little bit of an uphill battle because I mean technically you were a girl in what we can consider a boys sport. So
totally.
how did you were people just generally supportive, or did you have to find your truth in that?
I think there was both coins, both sides to the
Okay.
coin. There were people who were generally supportive because I was a girl trying to do something that most girls weren't trying to do. But that didn't mean that I didn't have to still earn the respect of other drivers, of other people out there, of the industry. And so there were times where there were other girl drivers out there that really, my sister for one, was out there, and she actually didn't want to be out there. It was very unaligned for her. She did not love it, but she tried it because her bigger sister did. And so when I could really embrace it, this was actually a part of me. This was a choice. This was something that I loved. This was something that was really a part of me. And I think the other thing too that I realized really young is, and this could be part of, growing up in a family that had some privilege where I could make these choices. And I was never really told I couldn't do something because I was a girl, or I couldn't do something by my parents. I really always have led with the optimistic possibilities that anything can happen as long as you really, really want it. And when you do really, really want it, getting that clarity about how to go forth and get it is so incredibly important. And I think because that's how I really led myself at a very young age, and that's still to this day how I lead myself an adult, as a professional, as a wife, as a person. It really has done me well, and to really look at the world that way, and to view myself in that way. But really gaining that respect was key, because otherwise that coolness of being a girl in a man's or in a boy's sport, that would have wore off really quickly if I wasn't able to hold my own, and to really create those deeper relationships, and to show that I was there because I really loved it and I wanted to be there.
I love that you define privilege in the terms of encouragement. I think a lot of times we quickly dump privilege into finances, where we quickly dump privilege, in a lot of world just because of race or ethnicity.
Yeah,
Um, when sometimes the privilege is, I had a friend tell me years ago that everyone deserves a cheering section. That
yeah.
sometimes the privilege is the cheering section, the fact that you have a cheering section. And when you talked about still having to gain the respect. I also find, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the willingness to educate yourself and to learn more about whatever it is that you're doing
Yeah.
helps to build that community that you're talking about. Is that right?
That's so true. And I mean, I think just as humans, we're lifelong learners. We never know everything that we need to know. And we know a lot of things, though, through our experiences and through our journeys in life. I work with a lot of people who are like, oh, I wish I would have known this earlier in my business, or I wish I would have known this earlier in entrepreneurship. And they really get down on it, on that should or I could. And I think by really retooling that mindset of, wow, I know this now, and I can be a better leader, I can be a better business owner, I can be a better entrepreneur because of it, is such a just a tiny shift in the mindset of how we can really look at things. And so as we've had these experiences, and as we're continuing to be lifelong learners, and really knowing that we learn through experiences and utilizing that to our power instead of our detriment, I think is really, really important in our growth.
You take that knowledge, because that's a wealth of knowledge and awareness that you have, and give that to your clients when you're talking about marketing.
Such a good question. And I think so this kind of leads me to the next place where I landed in my career. part of racing, I ended up challenging a local radio DJ to race against me to raise funds to start a youth group in my hometown. We had nothing to do after school. Kids were getting in trouble. Kids were getting into drugs. We needed a place that we could go to, and so I challenged this radio DJ, and he was a very large man, and I was a very small 13-year-old child. And it was so much fun racing him. It was so much fun. And from that situation, he was like, "You would be great at radio. I would love to have you come on and do some sort of racing report." And I was like, "Well, I'm not even old enough to work yet, let alone I can't drive to the radio station." So before I'd catch the bus for school every day, I'd give this radio racing report. But I think that part of part of all of this, of really finding the opportunities, figuring out how it works for me right now, and then being in that curiosity and questioning, radio led me into going to college to be a journalist and going to journalism school. And I think because I had already been interviewing people on the radio and had already been on TV interviewing people, it was a really, really easy transition. And so my main thing is to stay curious and stay in the question, and not a way that I'm questioning you because I think you're doing something wrong or something bad. In the questioning again for that potential growth and expansion that we could actually have. So being a curious human, and sometimes, it's that toddler syndrome that you ask of, well, why? Why did you choose this? Why are you thinking this way? Why are you saying it that way? And getting a few layers deeper and having those deeper conversations to really connect on a different level, to get into the root of what you're doing and why you're doing this and who you are, and then bringing that out, especially in your messaging, especially in promoting, and especially in marketing, is really, really key. And so I think by constantly being in that questioning curiosity space and knowing that that's a safe space for me to be in, and that's the safe space that I invite my clients to come play with me in. And sometimes I'm the only safe one they can be in curiosity and question, because they think they have to have it all put together and be so polished in the public eye. And I'm a big fan of, you have your business life and your personal life. And guess what, friends? We are one human. We live one life. They are so
Yeah.
intertwined. And so really breaking down that stereotypical that we have to keep everything so separate and we have these personas. You're one person, my friend. So let's be that person, and let you show up to be that person that you really want to be.
That is such a different way of hearing about marketing, because I think when you hear marketing, and I spend a lot of time on social media, whether it's just scrolling or what have
Yeah.
you, it's always very outward, right? It's very, what do they want?
Yes.
What do they need? And people, I feel like, try to curate themselves to whatever that they think that those individuals need. So it's interesting to hear you talk about that it's more introspective in order to get that. Is that, am I hearing
You are
correctly?
hearing it 100% correct, my friend. And I think that's the thing is, again, we were conditioned to think of people as avatars and, all of these things. But really, what I believe in deeply is, if you're not building a brand and a business that you love, that you can authentically show up and that you can show up being yourself, if you want to have messy hair and will wear gym clothes, have at it. I'm not going to judge you for that. If there are some people, though, that wouldn't want to work with somebody like that, and that's okay, because your marketing and messaging is only working when it attracts and repels people. And a lot of times what we try to do is we try to just attract and not repel. And so I think it's really beautiful when your messaging is working, when you have people who are super aligned working with you. And one of the things that I like to showcase this, and at least my marketing efforts, my personal marketing efforts, is I love to travel. I love food and drinking and like that experience. And so a lot of the things that I do when it comes to how we're learning marketing and messaging are through retreats, traveling to places, through going to on location and creating content together in community through those deep conversations. And I do attract someone maybe who doesn't love to travel every once in a while, and they are still a lovely human and a great person to work with. But 90% of the people that I work with have similar lifestyle values that I've built into this business to make sure that I'm living the most aligned life that I can. And when we create businesses, we get to create whatever we want. There is no hard and fast rule of what you can and can't do. And I think, again, just to your point, people try to build things that they think other people want instead of trying to build something that fulfills their soul and their desire to be an entrepreneur. When you have built that, that's when you start attracting those people to actually work with you. And it's real. It's not something that's just fake or this facade that you're putting out there.
So attract and repel. That was such a good statement because
Yeah,
again, when you hear about marketing, it's about, just attract the masses,
yeah,
not who you also potentially need to turn off because they
right,
may not be for you or you may not be for them.
right.
Is why do you or what have you seen as far as the fear of
Mm,
repelling
yes.
with with clients?
Oh, such a beautiful question. We want to be inclusive. We don't like telling people no as humans. But that also gets us into a lot of trouble, especially in our businesses, because if we're constant saying yes and we're saying yes to people or organizations or products that aren't aligned with us, then it's forced. And we're not building businesses to be forced. And there's nothing against anyone who's in the corporate space or working a 9 to 5. I know that completely flows with you. But when you're building a business, if you're building a prison where you're forcing yourself to show up every day in a way that isn't you, I say, why don't you just go get a job then and go work for someone else? Like, why are you even bothering working for yourself? Because you're not fulfilling that fundamental drive of you have a gift to give and you're great at something in this world. Why not work with those who see you as amazing, see your product as something that's going to absolutely help them? And why not let those people who are not right for you go find the right person that's for them, because you can't be for everyone.
I also hear when you were talking about that last part, I also feel like that takes a level of integrity and security within yourself. Like you
Mhm.
must believe that what you're doing is the right thing to be able to let go of something else, right?
Right. Well, and I think it is, again, believing that one, there's an abundance in this universe. So there is enough people who have businesses who want to build their business in a way that feels aligned with me, that they will find me in the places that I show up. Again, I work with marketing focused mostly. People are like, I need to be on Facebook to reach the 30 to 50-year-old crowd. I need to be on TikTok to reach those younger generations. I need to be on Instagram to reach the 20 to 30-year-olds. And I say, throw all that crap out of the window, because you're only going to show up truly authentically you where you want to show up and where you want to play. And so pick one and pick the social media that you love the most and let the rest go and show up there. I guarantee you the 3 million people that are on Facebook or LinkedIn, and it may not even be 3 million, but the millions of people that are on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, any of those platforms, I am sure there are plenty of people for you to work with and for you to collaborate with and for you to connect with. You do not need to go fishing in an ocean. It's a rough, bumpy ride. And some people are like, well, the fish are bigger in the ocean, though. I get that, but it's a lot harder to catch that fish. So, where can you find a place that you want to show up, that you feel good? And maybe social media isn't even that. Maybe it's speaking on stages. Maybe it's teaching. Maybe it's through an email list. There's a million ways that you can grow a business, and you do not need to be on all million of those ways. Let's pick a few that you really like and you love, and let's build it that way, because then you're going to show up consistently. You're going to have fun there, and you're not going to make yourself wrong if it doesn't land right away. Because marketing is an experiment. Again, there's not one way to do it, quote unquote, right. And so, really, if you focus your marketing on, instead of making a sale, if you focus it on starting conversations, it's such a different outcome than using your marketing as an end all to be all to make a sale.
That reminds me of the art of networking. like
Mm,
how people struggle with networking, and it's because there's this concept or these very old teachings that it's about meeting someone and selling your business, when in reality it's just about meeting someone and having a conversation. Like it's the conversation
right.
that potentially turns into it. So that when you said that, it just reminded me of that. When you're talking about how people need to learn just to essentially, pick one and run with it, right? Like wear that into the ground. Like I feel like that will cause a lot of people to shift potentially like how they see their business, how they've been moving. Have you ever had to go through your own identity shifts as you have gone through or as you have arrived to where you are right now?
Yeah, totally. And I think, who I am today, April 20, whatever, 2025, is that what year? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
right.
April.
That's
I'm
what we
like,
are.
what year are we in right now? I think I'm a much different person than I was 2, 5, 10 years ago. And again, that's part of our experiences. And being okay with that, again, embracing that that's part of the opportunity and not making yourself wrong for it. And, for the longest time, thankfully, I have a joyful dynamic duo at the Joyful Business Revolution. I'm not on my own. And so my business partner loves being on social media. She loves Facebook and she loves LinkedIn. Those are her social ways to meet people, to have deep conversations, and it's her play space. I'm not that big on showing up there. I show up there because I also do love being playful and having deep conversations, but I'm not there every single day. In other aspects, I love showing up in different ways. So I'm more likely to go to a networking event and love meeting the people there. And I feel like I can talk to a brick wall. And so it's really figuring out again what your strengths and what you do love, and then how do we best position you to really advance what you want to be advancing from that situation. And a lot of times when we go into networking situations or when we're creating social content, if we can get out of that mindset of we're just trying to sell to the end user, or we're just trying to sell something, and realize that there's connectors that you can be connecting with out there. Are you speaking to them? There's collaborators, there's your cheerleaders outside of your mom, your cheerleaders. And then you know what? There are people that are really watching you, and they're watching because they love what you're saying. And it's just not time for them yet to step up and be a cheerleader, a connector, a collaborator, or even a client. And that's okay. And a lot of people get super duper frustrated by some of those different categories not working well for them. And I think when you can start building a more robust, aligned audience and aligned people within your sphere, it shows up so much stronger in the rewarding of having a business and showing up in the platform that you choose or in the way that you choose. Again, you don't have to do it all. And I think that's the biggest thing that if anyone listening today is like, I feel like I'm spread too thin and all of my marketing and networking and blah, blah, blah efforts, you probably are. So scale back. I'm giving you permission that you don't have to do and be all.
That's so good. And I think the hold on to it, as we kind of talked about, is fear. It's the
It-
fear of letting go. But there's this whole statement, like, when you let go of one thing, it actually opens up,
right.
the door and the space for something different.
Mhm.
So what did leadership mean to you before you got to this? Is it the same? Would you define it the same, or has it drastically changed?
I think it's been defined similar-isk, but I think there's refinements and tweaks along the way in my journey. Like I want, leadership and as a leader, and I feel like I've viewed myself as a leader for a very long time. And I've really stepped in and embraced that that's who I am. I am a leader, and that's okay. And I don't want to make myself wrong for it. And I don't want to make anyone wrong for maybe them not being a leader or wanting to be a leader. But I really do think it's being able to kind of have those honest truth conversations with yourself of, all right, how do I improve on this? Or I notice that I want to do this differently or do this better. I don't even want to do this anymore. And I want to shift. And allowing yourself to be able to be okay with that and know that there are steps and there are ways that you can go about doing a lot of different things. but leading to make sure that you're not knocking someone else down, leading to make sure that you're kind, and leading to make sure that if you're doing this, are there others who can come with you and who you can lift up and they can lift up you in reverse. Like we don't do these things alone. And so when we can really look at, the leader isn't necessarily the front of the pack. The leader is within the pack. And we all play an important role within that pack. And sometimes our roles shift and change. And that is okay because that is a part of the evolution and a part of that journey. And I think that fear that you're kind of talking about is sometimes it's the fear of change, sometimes it's the fear of missing out, sometimes it's the fear of making the wrong choice. And, wrong choices, quote unquote, wrong choices can have some risk to them of not making enough money to support my family, not feeling fulfilled in my business or in my relationships. But when we listen to those things that are not and realize, okay, this is happening and this is real, what do I need to reflect on and what do I need to tweak to turn that not into it is working well, I am enjoying this is making me money. So it's not, there's never a done factor. Just like we're constantly learning, we're constantly evolving. And I think that when you can look at your growth and your leadership as that way, it it kind of sometimes takes that pressure too off that sometimes we have as a society on leaders. When you can really remove some of that pressure and realize what you're doing is in a leadership role or is as a leader, and it just may be a little bit differently looked at or defined as the next person, and that's okay because we're not all the same people.
Former choir director, may he rest in peace, who kind of told me one day that I have to look at leadership like the human body.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, when you're chewing food, your mouth is what your mouth and everything that's going on here is what is most important, but it doesn't mean that your feet have lost
Yeah,
their, you know what I'm saying, their significance, that there's a flow of leadership and a dynamic within the human body. And that is the best way to think of life. Plus, I
like
agree
that.
with you. You mentioned about society's definition, because I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying I don't really want to be out front, I don't
Yeah,
really want to be XYZ. I think society places that
right.
shiny gold object, that in order for you to be of any value, you must be leading. But the truth of the matter is, just like the leader has value, so do the individuals that are surrounding that, helping that person lead. The value is not lessened because
Mm,
you're not technically the one that is in front at that particular point in time. Did you
right.
have any role models that you outside of your parents and like I said, and the fact that they told you yes you can, did you have anyone that you kind of modeled or followed or admired?
I feel like that's always a beautiful question, one that sometimes I struggle answering because I feel like, gosh, I don't know if there's one person that's been on a pedestal, but there's a ton of interactions that I've had. And, sometimes it comes down to a boss that, I worked at a publishing company. I used to live out in Washington State. And, I went to journalism school. You would think I'd be able to write an article. I am the worst writer. My spelling and grammar are pretty horrible, y'all. Which makes sense because as a messenger, I love to pull the messaging and verbally reflect it. And thank goodness for transcribe now, right? It really makes my job a lot easier.
Same.
But one thing that she said to me, just because I'm a poor writer doesn't mean I'm dumb. And don't let anyone else ever tell you different. And I was like, wow, like those little statements of where someone recognizes something in me and acknowledges it. I think those are the moments of mentorship, and it's not always just one single person. And maybe that's what kind of also comes down to some of the societal like stereotypes that I don't enjoy about leadership. I don't think we really should put all of our eggs in one mentor basket. I really do think by surrounding yourself with those who are going to be honest, who are going to be curious, who are willing to question. And one of my favorite questions to ask my friends when they're like, "Oh, I really want to climb the ladder and I really want to, move up in my company. Why? Why
Why?
is
Right.
that important to
Why?
you?" And so it's
Yep.
very interesting to sometimes get the deer in headlight looks. Sometimes there's a deeper answer. And so I think by surrounding yourself with those people who can see the great things in you, who can also lift you up on the days that you need it, who can be in curiosity and question, I don't think it's one mentor. I do think it is. It's that community of people that you surround yourself around that really help you continue to grow and to be that person that you're wanting to be, to continue to push yourself to be in that higher version of yourself. And you don't have to be there every day, though. It's okay to have days where you're like, you know what, I'm just going to stay here today. And as long as you're setting that intention and being aware of what you're doing and the situation that you're in, I think that's really important. But yeah, I really don't have a single mentor that I've ever put my eggs into that basket, but I've had a lot of great mentor type experiences that have really shown me a different way to think, a different way to lead, a different way to look at myself. And I think that's the important part of it all.
I love that you said that because some of my friends used to laugh at me because I would say I would learn stuff from TV shows, like just
Yeah.
randomly. Like I'd be watching a show, like, oh, like something would be said that would
Yeah.
truly just adjust my thought process. And I would just say I feel like life is willing to guide you from wherever you're willing to listen.
Mm.
And so I think that's great. So as you talk to me about boundaries, so as you shift, as you grow, even for your clients at a certain point, boundaries have to come in place in order for you to focus, in order for you to say, you know what, this is who I am. What type of boundaries have you had to in place that had to put in place that potentially changed the game for you?
Yeah, I think, boundaries are really important, but they're super hard to set if you don't even know your lifestyle values. And so I think there's even deeper work that you have to do in order to understand and know the boundaries that you want to set. In my lifestyle values, I've already told you, travel is in there, food and drink is in there, health and wellness is in there, wealth is in there, and building community is in there. One thing that isn't in my top 5 lifestyle values is family. And so I set a lot of boundaries around my family and the time that I spend with them and how I bring them into the business or how I interact with them. And and so by knowing that and knowing that that's okay, that's still supporting my lifestyle value, I think it's really, really important. And I was having breakfast with my dad a couple of weeks ago, and we don't see each other often. We don't talk very often. And he's like, I really don't know what you even do. I just think you do this like online marketing thing. And I was like, that's a good way to describe it. And I didn't make him wrong for it. And I don't expect him to be able to go out and like get me clients or talk about my work. And some people are like, well, why didn't you take time to better explain it to your dad? And I was like, he's never really going to understand that I help entrepreneurs and do something that's so much more deeper. The man, has been a car repair person for most of his life and then went into working on electrical like wires. Like think about climbing the poles with the electrical wires. He did that. He doesn't understand this stuff. And so I think by being okay with like letting him run with online marketer and knowing that it's not going to hurt and it's going to make him feel okay to say it that way because I said, "Hey, that's a good way for you to describe it." But if it was someone who I'm a little bit closer with in maybe a friendship, and I know that there's opportunities for them to make a deeper connection for me that might help move me forward, then I might take a few more minutes to kind of educate them. So I do think when you know your lifestyle values, it's a lot easier for you to set those boundaries and for you to say yes to things. And as equally importantly, for you to say no to things as well.
So you definitely said something that's controversial about your top five values, especially
Yeah.
considering, if I remember correctly, I heard your wife,
Yeah.
a mother.
No.
No, okay, okay.
Yeah, mom.
But you said that the family values are not in your top five, and I'm speaking specifically as a woman. That
Yeah.
is so controversial for it to not be right, like shame, like for it to not be in
Right?
your top five. So like how did you feel when you realized like
Mm.
I can still value my family, but it
Yeah.
does not necessarily have to be the icing or the whipped
Right.
cream or the sprinkles on the brownie.
Right, exactly. And I think for women and even men who family is in their top lifestyle values, that is awesome, right? I think it's for the right people. And I think that when I realized it was that the family wasn't in my top lifestyle values, it kind of was a relief, to be honest, because I was trying to force it. I was trying to force those relationships. I was trying to force being a good daughter or a good daughter-in-law or a good sister or sister-in-law or whatever it may be. And, I think that community building, having a connected community is important. And are there parts of my family members who are in that connected community? Yeah, most definitely. Are there people who are not? 100% family members who are not. And that's okay. And so I think that you are right. Again, we get to create what we want in this life and what we want for ourselves. And if that is something when you think about it, that when you're like, wow, family isn't a top value of mine, how does that show up and how does that feel in your body? How does your heart feel? Does it feel relief? Does it feel guilt? Does it feel judgment? And kind of work through, where is that coming from? And I think when I released that family didn't need to be in my top lifestyle values, and that I was okay with that, and that I was okay with starting to set boundaries and guidance around how I wanted to interact with my family, it sparks a lot of conversations. And there's friends of mine who family is number one. And so it's kind of interesting to see it from their light and from my light. And sometimes it's bridging that gap and meeting in the middle on some things. So I think that, you're right that there could be some shame and blame around that, but it felt like such a relief when I finally was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been wanting, but I didn't know it until I knew it. And when I finally accepted it, it feels a lot easier to have a relationship with them even.
That your clients struggle with that type of balance and boundaries? Like, well, I think it's supposed to be X,
Right.
Y, Z, and then you peel back the layers, and it's like, yeah, no, it's not.
Right. Well, and some people, I have a beautiful client who has completely built her business around like supporting her family. And, when we go into those deeper meanings of why, we got into some really amazing like childhood things and how she was brought up and how she was made felt as she was a child. And we're actually figuring out how to use this as a keynote speech for her and as part of her mission-driven content around her business, because it's not just that she wants to be there to support her family with her business, the deeper meaning of why she even wants to support her family with this business has been super duper interesting to kind of play with. But I think it is, again, going into situations and conversations like that, knowing that there is no right or wrong answer, knowing that you can't say the right or wrong thing, and just knowing that if we can listen to really what's deep within your heart and if we can get to that part of it, there is some amazing inspiration and things that can come from some of that deep inner work.
Systems or habits do you have in place that are currently helping you like lead your life and business with intention?
Yeah. So, one thing that I always felt wrong about is I'm not an early riser. I don't like to get up early. I don't like to like get up and read and like work out or do anything. I like a light.
Your face says it all. It's why I'm laughing. You're like, ew. Like,
No, like I just need a nice easy morning. I want to like take my time getting out of bed. I love a little hot lemon water in the morning. And when I'm on, I'm on. I love peopling and I will people so hard from about 10 a.m. to 3 or 4 p.m. And when I made myself okay to do that, to maybe start my day a little bit later than others, or, not set my calendar so people can book calls with me at 9 a.m. because I know between 9 and 10, I'm gonna be lollygagging around my house. I'm gonna be maybe getting myself together. Sometimes I go outside and water the flowers or play outside for a little bit. To have that space and freedom in my mornings has been such a beautiful thing for me to uncover that it is okay to have that. And then I jump into my day. I do all of my things. I get my workout in at the end of the day. We're making dinner. And then we have our, unwind time at night. And I'm not making myself wrong for that. So I think by finding where your ease and flow is, and you're only going to do that from experimenting. Like I have tried to get up at 6 a.m. and tried to have meetings before, 9 a.m. And it just, the day drags. I feel tired. I don't feel energized. If you're feeling dead at the end of your day, then that's a sign that something must need to shift earlier in the day in order for you to be able to sustain and to really feel good and I guess excited about what you're doing. And so see how you kick your day off and don't make yourself wrong for it. and really try new things. Try getting up before the sun and seeing the sunrise. And, on the days that I can do it, because I'm on the West Coast, when I live on the East Coast, I try to keep East Coast time when I'm on the West Coast, because then I can check out the sunrise. It's kind of fun to have that little bit of a different way to start my day, but it can't be my everyday normal. There's no way I'd get up that early and be able to function the rest of the day. So give yourself permission to play and experiment and find what works for you, and then don't make yourself wrong for it. And that's part of the boundaries that, I get to set is, yeah, I'm not meeting and I'm not doing client work until 10 a.m. because that morning time is really, really good free time for me to just be me.
I love that you said if you notice that something is like off, or you notice you're drained or at the end of the day, to try something different versus there must be something wrong.
Yeah.
Because again, I think we immediately will go into, okay, something's wrong with me. I'm supposed to be up. Like I wake up fairly early, but it was because similar to you, I learned that that is when I am ready. Like when my
Right.
body naturally just wakes up at like maybe sometimes 4:45, 5 in the morning. I
Yeah.
learned that if I try to go back to sleep, I'm either
Same
irritated when
thing.
I finally do get up, and like, and at a
Yeah.
certain point, I was like, let me just be obedient to whatever this is that my body is trying to
Yeah.
tell me, and I am so much more productive
Right.
when I do that. So, like I said, I just love the fact that you were like, just try something different, see what your body is telling you. Now, I know for me. I am a little bit of a critic when it comes to myself, and I do try to work on that. But what kind of
Yeah.
grace do you give yourself when you potentially fall off your
So much
routine?
grace. So much grace. And again, I love to live by that 80-20 rule. If we can get it right, and I hate the word right, but I'm using it in air quotes, if we can get it right at least 80% of the time, let's roll with it. And this weekend we had all these plans about how we were going to do yard work and blah, blah, blah. And then we ended up doing none of that. And we ended up just going and enjoying some time with friends and enjoying this winery that we hadn't been to in a while. And, when I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, we really probably should have done some of that other things this weekend. But it's okay because we still loved what we did. We took and made a choice in the moment to pivot, and knowing that I'm probably going to have to do those yard work things over the week this week to get them done, but that's okay. And I think by giving yourself a lot of grace and knowing that you can't always bat 100, it's impossible. And to know that if you actually listened to what you really are craving or yearning, or you're really wanting in this moment, and you answered that first, and you did that more often than not, I'd be curious to see what shifts and changes in your life are happening and what might need to happen. So sometimes it is okay to just listen to that gut and make that decision to screw off all day instead of doing chores.
Yeah, sometimes I find it happens to be an awkward balance. Like I work out pretty often, and there have been days that I've caught myself like get up and like I'm just not doing it today. Like it was like I was just in full refusal.
Right.
But the next day, I seemed to have so much more energy. It was like my body was like, please take
You
a
needed a
break.
break.
Like it
Yep.
needed a break. And so I think that is good. There was a question I was going to ask, and I had a brain fart because we started talking about so I'm sure
Okay.
it'll come back. It'll come back to me. Oh no, here's a question I was going to ask. So you talked about the 80-20.
Mm.
Does that rule work in marketing?
Yeah, I would say 100%. And I think that, the a lot of people, especially when it comes to social media, they get so wrapped up in the algorithm and when should I show up and how often, blah, 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 blah. And again, I say, forget that. You don't have an algorithm problem if you're not even showing up consistently, anyways. And so let's find what time of day works out best for you, what type of content works best for you. And once we can figure that out, and you're getting it again about 80% of the time, and we're able to reflect on that 20% of the time that you chose or didn't execute on it. I think reflection is a big key that we don't do enough of too. Then that's when we can start thinking about those algorithm problems and that larger strategy. But until you're joyfully showing up and doing what needs to be done in order to get yourself out there, none of those other things matter. You don't have those problems yet. So I definitely think that's just a quick example about how the 80-20 can work in marketing.
So speaking of reflecting, if there's someone that's listening right now and they're like, yeah, it makes sense. Either I'm too scared to market. I just don't get it. I'm not ready to be a leader, even though I feel like I am one. Like, what do you tell that person, that business person? It's like, I need to repolish, but I'm still too nervous. I don't know what it looks like on the other side, because I think that's a big one. Like, I feel like I may need to adjust, but who is that person on the other side of that? What do you tell that person?
The best thing to do is experiment. And I think you have to, again, getting yourself out there, putting yourself on social media, utilizing your email list, speaking from a stage, all an experiment. You're never going to bat 100 at it. And so if you can give yourself the permission to maybe not have it go well sometimes and use that as part of the learning, use that as part of the data, it's super duper important. And so I say you can, again, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, but you sure can't say anything. You can't connect to the person if you're not saying anything. And so you want to make sure that what you're saying is purposeful, is meaningful to you. And when you start realizing that you're the person that really matters in all of this, that definitely could change some of that fear.
And what about the imposter syndrome side of it? Like, I could see people, a lot of times people like, I want to go out there, but I
Mm,
have my own struggles. Like, I want to stand up and be a speaker, but I
right.
used to have a lisp, like those
Yeah.
type things. Like, what do you tell that person?
I think imposter syndrome, the best way to work through it is to be in conversation and community. Like it's not something that you can actually work out in your head alone. And I'm to be honest with you, I don't think you
True.
can even work out your own messaging in your own head. You really do get clarity from being in conversation. And so find that community where you can feel and be safe and share with what is going on and know that part of that vocalization, part of that sharing is also helping you get over that imposter syndrome. And so, really being in conversation and community is the best bet, I think, in really getting over it.
That was so good because it's true. The fact that like you're like you can't work it out in your head.
You worked out.
It's not
Sorry.
right because it's
No
you talking to
formula.
you, so it's
Yeah.
imposter talking to imposter. Like it's not really
Yes.
gonna make much of a
Yes.
much of a difference. So here's my question. Now, I mean, the name of the podcast is Leadership is Me.
Yeah.
So when you look in the mirror, what makes you say, leadership is me?
I think that we've kind of touched on it throughout this whole conversation. So, one, thank you for being such a great interviewer and asking me beautiful questions. Because I really think when you can align with you and your own story and align deeply with what you really, really want out of this life's journey, and when you can combine that personal knowledge or intent with building a community, building those deep relationships. I know that, I'm really being a leader when I am being curious, I'm being in question, and I'm doing that with myself and others. That's when I know I'm stepping into that leadership role that I absolutely love. And it comes very intuitively and very naturally to me. And so I think that's an important part of leadership too, is that it is something that can be very, very natural to you and doesn't need to be forced. It really does need to flow nice and smoothly.
Think that's a beautiful way to put it because we do just want to Google the definition of leader,
Yeah.
and whatever shows up is what we try to be. When I should say it's in you already, so it really is kind of as you talked about earlier, getting in touch with what are your values, who are you actually, and just allowing that to shine. And so I want to thank you so much just for spending some time with me today and thank you for the compliment. I'm trying to get as good a questions as possible to hopefully help someone out here. And so, your journey and what you've shared so far is again just another reminder that again, leadership is not about perfection. It's messy, it's choosing to grow, it's reflecting, it's being willing to have those tough conversations with yourself. And sometimes it's unorthodox.
Yeah.
Um, and so before we wrap, where can people find you and what things do you potentially have on the horizon?
Yeah. So if you want to check me out, go to the joyful or not the go to joyfulbusinessrevolution.com. That's our website. And I had mentioned that travel is one of my top lifestyle values. We've got two really great retreats coming up, one in September of 2025 to Mexico, and another to Italy in May of 2026. And again, like these are just beautiful opportunities to dive and create those meaningful connections with yourself and with others while having beautiful meals, while exploring and being on adventure, and give yourself that rest and break too that you need from your business. I think, a lot of times we forget that we as humans do need those vacations and those times off. And if we have our own business and no like bank of PTO to be forcing us to use it, we have to take that initiative ourselves. And so if you're interested in maybe traveling on a retreat with us, or even if you need a little bit more support at home, we've got a couple beautiful programs to really help you grow your business in a way that's aligned and flowing with you.
Absolutely. And you might see me in Italy like that. Now you said
Oh,
Italy. I'm like,
I
okay.
would love for you to come to Italy. Yes, that would be awesome.
Like that's definitely a bucket
So
list place for
excited.
me.
Oh my gosh, it's totally on my list too. I haven't been yet either. So this will be my first time to Italy, and it will be with 12 amazing people.
Awesome. Italy and Bali are for some
Mm.
reason my two, like I've got to get there
We were
before
meant
the
to meet. Bali's on the list for 27. So there you go.
oh got see and
To
there
Italy,
we
you're
have
coming with
it.
me in 27. We have vacation plans together. I'm excited.
So again, I just want to thank everyone for watching today. But again, Amy, I'm so grateful that you chose to share this space with me. Again, I know someone somewhere is walking away with just a little more clarity. Especially the one piece that sticks out to me about the marketing is it's not just about attracting, it's about repelling. And I think that's such a different way to think about your marketing. And I feel like it takes some of the pressure off of it too, because it's like,
Yeah,
oh, my message is supposed to really only be for a particular subset of audience.
right.
Um, and so to every soul that is tuning in, again, thank you so much for being a part of another episode of Leadership is Me. If today's conversation stirred something in you, don't just hold on to it. Share it, sit with it, but most importantly, act on it. Because again, real leadership is not just built in a moment. It is built in the quiet, everyday choices with intention and growth. So the leader that you've been looking for this entire time, once again, is already within you. If you would like to share your journey on Leadership is Me, please send us an email at leadershipisme@gmail.com or follow the links on the screen to sign up. And I will also have Amy's links posted on the closing screen so that way you can actually just see exactly where you need to contact her. But until next time, get empowered, stay evolving, and most importantly, execute. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Absolutely love when someone brings a fresh perspective to things, right? The idea that your marketing is not only supposed to embrace, but it is supposed to repel. Again, it's something that you just don't hear. Society has put us in a place where we just feel like we're just supposed to have the floodgates open. And God forbid if someone is turned off, that there's a fear of lack, there's a fear of there's not enough out there for us. But as she said, even if we just play around with the 3 million people on Facebook, you can't work with 3 million people by yourself. You're going to need a team. So there is a percentage of people that is made just for you and will be attracted to you as you authentically are. So not only do I think that that is such a good message for marketing, I think it's an awesome message just for life. Don't try to curate something just for acceptance. Be authentically you and trust that whatever is meant to come your way will, and whatever's not, won't. Till next time.